Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Film Study. This is Ken McCusick. We're here to discuss the offense from that win in London against the Tennessee Titans. Great to come back with a win, and here to talk to me about the offense, talk with me about the offense is Alec Poulianis of One Winning Pod. Alec, how you doing?
Doing great, Ken. Really looking forward to talking about this performance and celebrating a win that was much needed after that very disappointing weekend in Baltimore.
Yeah, I appreciate folks who listen to the defensive pod. There were apparently some technical issues that were server side with StreamYard, and we've got them ironed out today. They should be good. I should be sounding normal instead of sounding like I'm underwater. And hopefully things are better today. And apologize for the pod last night being a little bit difficult to listen to. And hopefully that's too bad because it was some good content with James Ogden. So anyway, we're back. We're ready to talk about the offense today. Ravens left early on this trip, really paid off for them, I thought, in terms of spending a lot of additional money to get out there and be in London for some extra time, but get their sleep schedules adjusted, and they looked ready to play that game.
Yep. I'm glad you pointed it out. I feel like it's only a money thing. It's pretty obvious to me. This is the way to go. I mean, I was making the joke, like, if you've ever traveled internationally going that direction, the first day is rough. The second day is rough. But, by third day, you're feeling all right. And if you fly home Friday, you're still not feeling great on Sunday. And that's problematic, So like it seems pretty obvious to me. Obviously it costs more money, but you know what? I think the team got a lot out of it. It was kind of like a little business trip. It seems like they were able to spend more time together. And I think it's important to have those. It was like almost a bye week in a way. Like, don't get it twisted, right? Like, obviously they had to play a game. They had to travel way more than normal, but I think they spent more time together and it was a little out of the norm. So I think it was a nice little like shock to the system, particularly after that tough loss. I think it was kind of right what the doctor ordered.
It was kind of weird to see them boarding the plane the next day after that Steelers loss and all being off to work and whatnot. But it does seem to be just what the doctor ordered. It seemed to be just a good week spent for them, good money spent by the Bishottis. And, I thought a really class time they spent in London. They had the Ravens bus. They're going around to various events. And the band all of a sudden showed up when we were at one UK Ravens event, and cheerleaders and whatnot. I was told Ray Lewis was going to be there at some point, and we left before that happened. But got to meet a lot of the great fans over there in the UK who follow the Ravens. They are very good sports fans over there, and just nice people to meet.
Yeah, it looked like an incredible time. It looked like even DaCosta went to that event at the the pub. And like it seemed like a really cool gathering. I definitely kind of wish I could have gone. It seemed really cool.
Yeah. Looks like the Ravens avoided big injuries on this trip. Now, they had the 4 guys who returned against Pittsburgh, and those guys did not play well in that game. And that was
Stanley,
Williams. I always have trouble remembering all the names when
OBJ and Humphrey.
Humphrey, there you go. Yep. And so none of them played particularly well in that game. Humphrey maybe wasn't terrible, but he got beat for the winning touchdown pass, and Stanley looked really bad. OBJ, allowed the interception, of course, and Williams looked like he's playing with one arm. In this game, Williams was the biggest injury probably coming out of the game with his hamstring. On the other hand, it kind of overlaps with that existing shoulder injury, which does not look like he should be out there over Stone right now.
Yeah, I agree. And in a way, I'm like, this isn't the worst thing that have happened. I really do feel for him. I know he's trying really hard to be out there, but it's not great. Like when he came downhill to try to tackle Henry, you just could tell he didn't want to do it. Like it was a weird setup. And like thankfully he was able to bring him down on that getaway run. That was an incredible effort. I remember watching and being like, are we serious? Like the one guy who is like broken right now is our last chance. And he made a really heroic tackle there. But yeah, we got tested really hard too when he got hurt. And then Hamilton was ejected, moving Stevens back to safety. It was a very interesting move. I was curious what would happen there. And I'm glad that we have that kind of positional depth, but it's a tough situation. I'm glad they brought in a new safety on the practice squad. I think it's really needed at this point.
Yeah, it's a good signing. Adams is a longtime vet. They have a couple guys, Houston Carson now and Adams, who've been in the league for a long time. By the way, if you look at the Ravens practice squad here, one of the things I want to see, and let me just refresh this because there's been changes, and I'm hoping they've updated this since they got back. They probably have. They have 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like 4 guys now who are in their 8th year or later. Now they don't have Adams on here yet, not who would be the 5th. So they cut Drake, but they didn't put Adams in here yet. So you have 5 guys who are in their 8th year or later on the practice squad. It's just incredible. Laquan Treadwell, Melvin Gordon, Houston Carson, and Eric Tomlinson, and now Adams. And Adams has been recently a pretty damn decent cover guy and has about 3,000 career snaps. So he's not a lightweight in any way in terms of doing this. And I think if they got him, they probably really believe that he can play the back end. Played more free safety than strong safety. Houston Carson is the other way around. He's played more strong than free. So probably a really good split safety option for the Ravens if they want to bring Hamilton back up into the box.
Yeah, and while you might lose a little bit of developmental upside by having these veterans on the practice squad, I really do think it's a nice extension of the roster and what will lead to a more competitive team. I think this is the right move for where this team's at.
I think you always have to balance things for 23 and 24. Mm-hmm. And so here's my fear. When I look at that roster again, let me bring that up again, damn it. The entire practice squad just has a couple of names who are true developmental players. So you got Jeremy Lucien, a corner safety, who is truly a guy I think they've got a ticket on. That's a lottery ticket kind of guy. They've got Trey Swilling, who's a 1 guy, but you got to really look at the R1 guys as the guys who could really help them for multiple years. You want to throw Josh Ross into that category. He's a year 2 guy, but he might be a guy who could help them in the future. And then I think the other is Tayshaun Manning. I'm not that high on Tykeem Doss. I don't think either of the wide receivers, either Black or Ryan, are that great an opportunity. Travis Vokolek would be another one, a tight end who could still help the team a long time. And I guess, the other guy they still have, and they might actually be going to him this week if Urban can't go, is Rashad Nichols. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty thin sheet of future talent that they have there. This practice squad is built primarily for this year. It's not built for a lot of future value. Tayshaun Manning is the big guy who could help them at guard. I guess if they have some losses coming up at safety after this year, and Lucien could also be a guy. But it really looks to me like Manning is probably the biggest name on the practice squad.
Yep, I agree. And Lucien, I'm excited to see what he can do.
Okay. All right, outstanding. Let's move on. Obviously, this is a defense that did very much outmatch the Titans, and they won the game in a lot of ways. They had the game put away. I'm using air quotes if you can't tell. Fairly early with the 18-3 lead at the half. That certainly should have been enough. They came out and they got a 3-and-out, I believe, right away in the second half. So they were looking good, but they did manage to let the Titans outscore them 10-0 in that third quarter and get back in the football game.
Yes, they did. And that was really unfortunate. Just a couple bad drives that got stalled out early from poor first down success. And then, of course, the interception. It's frustrating that they weren't able to just kind of close the door. Two scores can become one real quick, right? And then that's when it gets a little dicey. So, yeah, unfortunately, that was the case with this game. It had that dread of, are we really going to let this slip through our fingers again? But seemed like we kind of turned it back on, particularly with that interception. That really, I think, was a big table turner.
Huge play. And then, of course, the long drive for the field goal when they were already up 8 was another big one. So they got a big defensive stop. They outsnapped the Titans 70-46 in this game. That's exactly what the doctor ordered, by the way. And if you're looking for all of the effects of London rolled into one statistic, that might be it. That they were able to stay on the field a lot longer. They were a lot more in sync offensively early in that game on third down than the Titans were, had all kinds of trouble. So even though the Ravens' series success rate was not particularly high in this game, there was still, I think they were in the low 70s, and they're at 69% now for the last 4 weeks, which is below the league average of 69.9%. Okay, so it's they've really the offense has not been getting it done in the last 4 weeks. But on the other hand, they're still sitting there at, I think it's 9th in the league in red zone percentage at 58.3%. They're 14 of 24 now, despite going 1 for 6 in this game. So I'm not saying 58.3 is where they want to be, because the league average was 56% last year. It's down to 53.3% this year. So they're above league average, but it's still not an exciting place to be.
Yeah, that's indicative of the hot and cold nature of this offense. It really seems like there's no in between. Obviously, they did get a lot of field goals this game, but there were a lot of field goals when they were dramatically close to the goal line. What seemed to be a very promising drive, and then kind of get staggered. So hopefully they can improve it. Offense is down in total. It's like the lowest total since 2012. So it's par for the course in a way, but also like we want to rise above. So hopefully they can start figuring it out. I have some thoughts on why the team is struggling offensively, particularly in the red zone, and I'm sure we'll get into it in this episode.
Sure, we probably should. And this is talking about some of the regression in general that we talked about in the production meeting, because this is a good time to study.
Yeah. So, I mean, my biggest thing, and we'll talk about in episode 2 in more depth, is that the offensive line is really limiting their options when they get close to the goal line. And they're also just not being successful with the options that we're giving them. So, this is really the part that I think they need to improve upon. I honestly do think they have the horses as far as skill position players to succeed in the red zone. I don't really think it's a lack of that. I think it's that the offensive line has just not been performing, particularly the left-hand side, in getting proper push in the run game, and then also enough time to run the kind of plays you want to run. So it's really challenging. And almost one of my initial thoughts is, do they want to start trying to strike from farther out? Like intentionally build plays to try to get in the end zone earlier rather than trying to get closer. That's not a fun way to live. It's not a great way to live. It's probably, you can't, in many ways you can't predict it, right? Because otherwise you have to throw it in the end zone. Otherwise you might get stopped. But yeah, I'm kind of curious to see how this unfolds going forward. The ideal way would be just better line performance, but I don't know if we're going to get it this year.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, we'll get to the offensive line in the second part. So definitely some people took a step forward in this game, and there's others who took a step back. And unfortunately, I'm not seeing the game from Kevin Zeitler the way that PFF did. PFF had him rated as the highest ranked lineman. That's not where I had him. Really? So we'll talk through that. They a good mix of run and pass in this game, just the kind you want if you can get it. 39 run, 31 pass. A lot of teams. Teams preach for years wanting to be 50-50, and very few NFL teams can stay at that level. And the only way you generally can is have a game like this where you really outsnap your opponent and beat them badly. But the Ravens, with Monken, have been quite good at maintaining a high percentage of run plays.
Indeed, they really do try to keep it consistent. I feel like they do sprinkle in enough run, even in positions where you might think they'll pass, particularly on second and 7 or so. They'll typically try to run because they want to make it a lot more manageable play options for third down. I've noticed that a lot. So we haven't been seeing too many, I feel like, second and shorts this year. I don't know if you kind of noticed that as well. But definitely, trying to get to a more manageable third down so that they can have a better success rate there.
That's an interesting one, because 2nd and 7 in particular, so even 2nd and 6, kind of traditional football thought would tell you those are defensive wins on first down that have just occurred. And so you're already kind of behind the off schedule, let's call it. So right. Now we do remember the 2019 Ravens and the 2018 Ravens as well. We're a team that we're happy to run on 3rd and 5 because, hey, you got 2 downs to get those 5 yards. Why would we not pass until 4th down? But that was a different time with an unbelievably great offensive line there that we now can only appreciate in retrospect. Talking about.
Yeah, that was when you could oppose your will and just you knew you were going to get yards every time. So it was a little bit different, but now it's you got to fight for them a little bit more.
Right. I think you were calling it small pot poker in terms of some of the things they did, but they went 1 for 6 in the red zone in this game. It was a combination of things I thought that brought them back. One thing that I'll mention, I want to hear your reasons too, is that they kind of had gotten some away with some things in previous weeks. So 2 weeks ago against the Browns, they threw the pass, or Lamar threw the pass into the corner of the end zone. Basically, was heavily double covered. Andrews picked it out of the air, and it was a great catch. It was a very low percentage throw. Okay, right. And everybody says, "Great risk, Lamar." They're only going by the result because that is a terrible throw. It's a terrible choice to make that throw. Great that he made it, but it was no, yes on a 3-point shot. That's exactly what that was. And then this a week ago, they had the interception that Beckham could not strip away. And now they're being a little more cautious in terms of throwing the ball in the end zone, which is probably a good thing in general, because you certainly wouldn't want one out of every 2 of those going wrong. And I don't know if those throws are even good enough to have only one of the 2 of them go wrong, but they're both interceptable balls. You end up with this this week where they basically ran the ball a lot more to try and hammer their way in. And then when they got to 4th down, they didn't really go for it.
Yeah, they didn't. How many times did they get to like 3rd and 1?
I'll look it up while you're doing this.
Yeah, they fail, and then it's 4th and 1, and you're like, are they really not going to go for it? And yeah, there was a couple really short yardage ones where they just weren't able to punch it in, and they didn't go for it, and they were so close. With our defense being like inside the 5 or inside the 10, you're like, maybe you do it. But honestly, like, I wasn't against it. I usually am like yelling, like, why are we not being more aggressive here? Like, get the points. I'm like, this team is just not that good. They came out late to London. I feel like we should beat them. Like, why are we going to give them chances? Why are we going to give them any momentum? Like, I just was like, you know what? Fine. 3 points. 3 points.
Yeah, let's go through what happened, because they had a 3rd and 1. I think it was really 3rd and inches, and then it might have gotten them 4th and slightly more than 1 after it looked like Edwards had actually a loss on the play on the very first field goal. So they have 4th and 1 at Tennessee 23. The 2019 Ravens wouldn't think twice about going for that.
Right.
You go to the second drive of the game, 4th and 4 at the Tennessee 10. Analytics people are probably whispering in the headset, go ahead and go for it. Because you leave the other team way down here at the 10-yard line. This is a good thing. You've got to trade off and you might get points and whatnot. I'm not even sure they wouldn't say no on that. My guess is it'd probably be very close at the worst in terms of this. I know there's a bot out there you can look at to see it. The 3rd field goal, 4th and 5 at the 5, after they just lost 4 yards on a run. Understand completely why they did it. So no problem there. Then we go to the next one. There was just 1 second left in the half. And so they got the field goal. And that was their 4th field goal of the day. And then we go to the second half, and they scored 10 straight points, including what went on there with the interception. Then we go to the 4th quarter, 4th and 2 at the Tennessee 2. Tucker kicks a 20-yard field goal to go back up 8. Those points are important to go up 8. And they already knew at this point that probably that Malik Willis was coming in the game, although he didn't come in until the next play. So they might have figured out and said, okay, it's going to be Willis. Let's make sure we're up 8. But still, 4th and 2 at the 2. If you knew it was Willis, you probably also would love to leave Willis with a 98-yard field.
Right.
And they instead did not go for it. So, that's another one. And then they had 4th and 1 at the Tennessee 19 with an 8-point lead. Now, there I completely understand it with 4:19 to go. Those 3 points have more win probability value than trying to go for a first down there. Although if you go for a first down, you also take away a lot of time from Tennessee. And they'd already called 2 of their timeouts, and you'd had a chance to run out the clock on them that way. So, I think it could have gone either way. Anyway, the Ravens played it very, very conservative in this game in terms of taking the points on 4th and 1, 4th and 2, and even 4th and 4. And I think the small pot poker analogy that you were making earlier is a good one in terms of the Ravens deciding, hey, we're the better team. Let's just allow things to play out as they are at slight disadvantage to our expected points, and yet spread the outcome of the game over more die rolls or coin flips or whatever you want to call it in order to make it work.
Correct. And then, going forward, it's kind of interesting, right? Playing the Lions next week. I don't know if you can get away with that. So we'll see if they have a change in philosophy. They'll also, technically be at home, whereas I feel like that game kind of felt like a home game based on preparation and also the amount of fans we had supporting. So, yeah, I mean, definitely we'll see how they proceed, but this was a kind of a step back in aggressiveness.
Yeah, I agree. And, it's the difference in terms of what kind of favorite they were was not much. But by the time Willis came in the game, it was pretty evident which was the better football team on the field, which was more prepared to play in London, all those things.
Right.
But I do think, they're a 3-point favorite of the Lions at home. There were a 4-point favorite of the Titans sort of at home, even though the Titans were technically the home team. There were no Ravens videos on the board all day. Of what had happened. It was all Titans crap, but then, Titans introducing things and whatnot. But it was a game where there were certainly more Ravens fans there.
Right. You could tell right from the O. I was like, all right, we're good.
Yeah. All right. We ready to move on and talk a little bit about Lamar?
Let's do it.
All right. So a few things about this. So the Ravens had 31 total passing snaps, and the Titans only rushed 5+ on 8 occasions. And if you think back to the previous week, the Steelers used a lot of 5-man plus rushes against the Ravens. They really, I thought, determined a little bit of a blueprint to beating Lamar was to send extra pressure against him. Of course, they didn't have Moses in the game at that point. Stanley, back in a week healthy, they had a little bit better advantage with him. But what turned out happening is when they rushed 5, they gave up 6.1 yards per play. But when they rushed 4, they gave up 7.6 yards per play. Not a tremendous difference, but definitely something where Lamar made a number of big plays by getting time and space created, or even just meandering out of the pocket and leaving the pocket at better times when only 4 men were rushing.
Yeah. I guess I thought Lamar did a really good job of managing this game. Was only sacked once, if I recall correctly.
2-yard loss.
And only a 2-yard loss. Given kind of the crap we're giving the offensive line for this performance, he was still able to not get damaged by it too much, and I thought that was admirable.
Yeah, that was a real problem on this field. I thought it was first of all, you don't want to be taking hits on a field like that. And if all the things you can say about the offensive line in this game, and they weren't great in a lot of ways. They did a very good job of not letting Lamar get hit in the game. And I think this was a good field to not get hit on. We saw what happened to Tannehill. He did get hit. He was out. And Malik Willis took a few shots as well in the process and didn't look great either. Ample time and space, 9 times out of 31 throws, so 29%. Lamar completed 6 of 9 for 50 net yards, so 5.6 yards per play. That's not much at all, by the way. You ample time and spaces, you want those up around 10 yards per attempt. He did not do much other than the 10-yard touchdown to Flowers, where he basically strolled around the field, eventually, found Flowers in the open. Some of the video of that in the All-22 really looks good for Flowers continuing to work to make space as the play went on.
Yeah, I loved watching that. He was run that drag route in one direction, realizes the play is kind of breaking down and flips his hips, and might as well forget about it. It looked like one of those training camp videos where the guy gets completely lost and gets that easy touchdown. So something I would love to see more of. I think he would be really effective on some whip routes and stuff. They do it occasionally, but his suddenness is unbelievable. So build that in more.
The play that reminded me of, unfortunately, was in 2018 when they went into Kansas City and they lost on the 4th and 9 play to Mahomes. I think it's 18. Yeah, it's 18. And on that 4th and 9 play, Mahomes ran around the pocket and then he finally just unloads the ball deep. And somehow Tyreek Hill is open by 10 yards downfield because of that. And then he ran around and they ended up scoring the game tying touchdown, won it in overtime. But that's the play it kind of reminded me of. This was a really good trust building throw for Flowers. I think is very important. I still want him to be used more on routes down the field. I hope we see him more, peeling the top off the defense, taking the safety's attention. But this was a good one. And it's there now. And defensive coordinators are going to have to look at that film. Actually, advanced scouts will, and they'll have to say, how the hell do we cover this guy? And
yeah, I think one thing I don't know if you've also noticed, Ken, but we haven't really taken many deep shots at all this year. We've taken long intermediate throws, but I would say like we've had basically no, streaking down the defense, unloading a, 40-yard, 60-yard, rainbow pass, like that. None of that at all. Very interesting. Maybe it's a reflection of the not thinking the pass blocking can sustain long enough to do something like that. But I would love to see more of it because we have the horses to do it. I really think a lot of our wide receivers could get away with it. Flowers being one of them. I think Aguilar and Bateman could probably also, execute a route like that. So something I would like to see them try.
Yeah, it's something if you've got a single high situation, you can definitely put yourself in a position to do that. If the other team's playing too high, you have to kind of take what the defense gives you and maybe take some intermediate throws instead that are in front of those safeties. But if you've got a single high look, you definitely have the option to, and you have the time also is, I guess, the key point here to get that ball up because that throw only takes about 2.1 seconds to hit him at 42 yards, I want to say. That's the kind of the old Walsh math of how long it takes a ball with good air under it to get to be delivered to then get to the receiver at about 42 yards. So it's that's a good it's a good option there. It's probably something they want to try. Maybe they could even check into it the next time they see single high. Mm-hmm. And but that's the hard call. You always see the wide receivers on the outside are usually the last person to get the play check. So you got to have it as part of a 2-play call you're making and then check to it at the line of scrimmage. And hopefully the defense doesn't, drop a safety back deep at that point.
Right. Always the chess match.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. What else I got? Okay. Ball out quick. 7 times, 23%, 7 of 7 on those throws for 50 yards, 7.1 yards per play. Nothing wrong with that. Again, only 23% of the totals. Here's the big one. Lamar was pressured 15 times. That's 48%, basically exactly the same amount that the Ravens pressured the Titans QBs. But on those, he completed 9 of 14 for 121 yards, 8.1 yards per play. 1 sack for -2 in that group, and the interception, which is obviously unfortunate, not what you want. But that's 8.1 yards per play was more than 10 yards better than what the Titans quarterbacks did because they were -2.3 yards per play when pressured. So that was the difference in this ball game. A nice inverted game from Lamar. And frankly, I'm glad to see it because I think we needed to see him have a really good game where he's unloading the ball under pressure. And I thought he did a really good job with his opportunity set in this game.
Reflecting on it, this is definitely probably the most encouraging 2 bullets that we'll talk about tonight. Because this, to me, shows that Lamar's really starting to understand this offense, knowing where he can go with the ball when he is getting pressured, and also knowing where the ball out quick, that's probably recognizing, seeing the defense, and understanding that he'll have an opportunity there and being able to unload the ball quickly there. Allegedly, in the media availability, he said that Bateman was kind of held up, and that was why he was out of position. And you could see it on the
interception.
Film. Yeah. And he was saying that's why they were out of sync because he got held up in his route and then wasn't quite where he thought he'd be because that was a ball out quick situation. The ball came out, I guess maybe a pressure in your nomenclature, but pressured and the ball came out quick. Right. So, I think
it came out early. That doesn't always mean it's not pressure. So,
yeah. So, anyways, I thought that was encouraging. Just being able to see him dissect the defense even when he's getting pressured.
That, by the way, that was one of several pressures to Zeitler that obviously PFF and I disagree on because they've got 0 pressures in this game. But he was clearly in the throwing cone on that play. Picked up he did a kind of heroic job of picking up the stunt, but he picked it up way too deep. And he's basically right back in the cone. So it was what it was. So Lamar 2.94 seconds to throw in this game. That's good. It's good to see him back up towards 3 per play. What you really want to see is like a 3.42 in one of these games where he's got a couple of just ridiculous time and space opportunities created in first by some good blocking, and then by his legs, where it ends up being like 8 seconds, like last week, and that bumps up the whole average significantly. But 2.94 is pretty good. He had still a number of balls that were thrown quickly, particularly the outside, some wide receiver screens, some screen passes that were out fairly quickly. And so, I'm happy that there were other plays that bumped that average up higher. And it's just, unfortunately, aside from that one pass to Flowers, he didn't do too much with the longer opportunities he had.
Yeah, I tell you, man, the one thing that really bugged me, I don't know if you had the same feeling, when that initial play was like the screen to Aguilar. I was like, why would they do that? Like, it was on third down, and he almost breaks away and gets and gets a touchdown. I think that field impacted a lot of players from getting maybe more yards. But yeah, like sometimes, like I feel like, if I recall correctly, I think they were in a single high on that play, and I thought to myself, oh, this is your opportunity to attack, go downfield. But yeah, they took a little bit more conservative route, and it worked out really well for him. But that was kind of what my thought was.
It's at that. I think the point you made there is an interesting one, and I think you're probably right, because we saw it later on the big Tyjae Spears pass play, which is, by the way, is -3 plus 51. So it's none of that is the quarterback. So it's all Spears making people miss down the field. The Ravens had 3 missed tackles on the play. Yeah. The missed tackles they had weren't generally, I have this guy easily. They were, I'm overrunning the play, which could well be a matter of the field is too soft to run on. We saw at least 2 plays where Lamar had trouble running on the field. One where he got tripped up by the ankle. He never gets tripped up like that. I'm thinking it is a lineman did it. Another one where he went down before contact, where it looked like he wasn't really trying to go down. He was trying to maybe make a cut. But I mean, in general, I was really fine with him going down prior to contact in this game. I thought that's a really good thing, given the nature of this field and the reputation it has for creating injuries.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm all for Lamar not being a hero unless he really has to be, and going down, in general. I don't need to see him get hit.
All right. What else I want to talk about? Let's see. Let's talk about, I think we talked a little bit about the offense creating more space with Flowers. Bateman, you mentioned as a guy being able to run a more vertical routes and try to take a shot over the top. I would love to see that too. I hope that the trust level with Bateman is not at a really low level right now, but between the drops last week and the no play on the interception this week, I just hope that relationship is not broken down in some way.
It's challenging for sure. I think it's something they're working on in practice. I don't know what we need. I think he needs to break a bigger play. They've been definitely intentional in the first sequences, trying to get him a catch in like a nice short way. But that's not quite it. I think he needs a little bit bigger play. He needs like that Odell play. Granted, that Odell play wasn't immediately going to be what it was, but I think Odell really got fired up from getting that 34 yards, going through traffic, and kind of feeling like, okay, I'm back. I'm able to do it. He even admitted that he came back a week too soon when injury wise. Like, he was feeling a lot better this week than he was last, and you kind of see it on that one play. Hopefully, we can get something like that for Bateman, because I think he needs a little bit of a confidence boost, and it's not going to be just an 8-yard out. It needs to be a major first down, maybe on third down kind of play.
Yeah, I agree. I've been noticing the scripted plays going to him too, and thinking this is good. You got it back in the offense after 2 drops. Getting him on that little sideline play, and then he had another catch.
With the busy fall season already in swing, you might be looking for wholesome, convenient meals for jam-packed days. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help you fuel up for breakfast, lunch, and dinner with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle. Guys, I've shared moving. I was using this for all my meals. Now I'm working from home. Guess what? Microwaves in the other room. I'm using this for all my meals. Factor is how I get through my lunch day every day. But they've got breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I haven't tried the breakfast ones yet, but why not? I think I might add that to my next order. But I love them for lunch. Plus, they've got new autumn fall flavors out right now for limited time, featuring seasonal veggies like cranberry, pecan chicken, and apple Dijon pork chops. And again, Just like everything else, they're ready in just 2 minutes. They'll satisfy your fall cravings during this busy season without the hassle. So go ahead and level up with Gourmet Plus options as well. Prepared to perfection by chefs and ready to eat in record time. Treat yourself to upscale meals with premium ingredients like broccoli, leeks, truffle butter, and asparagus. Head to factormeals.com/Ravens50 and use the code Ravens50 to get 50% off. That's code Ravens50 at factormeals.com/Ravens50 to get 50% off your Factor meal today. Aaron Rodgers' season is officially over, but yours has just begun at MyBookie. NFL, college ball, and the brand new cash-out system gives you options to bet and win all season long. First 2 legs of your parlay hit? Cash out early and place another bet, or let it ride for a chance at a bigger payday. Join us at MyBookie for an entire season filled with daily odd boosts, same-game parlays, and huge prize pool contests. Right now, MyBookie has a no-strings-attached cash bonus that lets you deposit and withdraw quick. Use the promo code RAVENS on your first deposit of $50 or more, and you can receive up to $200 in cash instantly credited to your MyBookie account. That's promo code RAVENS to claim your cash bonus now. You can bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie.
But I think he needs a play like the Flowers play, where
Yeah.
he works to find space as Lamar is extending a play. That's the big trust builder. Is I'm looking for my guy when I need him open there, and it's Andrews first, it's Flowers second, or the other way around, pretty much all the time right now. And it would be great if Bateman were on that list somewhere, sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go ahead and talk some other scheme elements. The running back snaps, really. One thing I was expecting to see this game, we did not obviously see Keaton Mitchell return. He did play 17 special team snaps, I believe, 0 on offense. 44 for Edwards, which is, by the way, a very heavy workload. So the Ravens had 71. Okay, and the snap definition I have to go through every time because that's how retentive I am. But they had 70 snaps that counted. They have 1 extra penalty. 44 and 27 for Edwards and Hill meant they had one running back exactly on every play. So they never tried to do anything where they had a pony situation. I would personally, for Mitchell, I would love to see them do that on a play where they have Flowers on the field. So basically, it gives them 2 good speed options at the same time. One who can do gadgetry with Keaton Mitchell might line up anywhere at all. You don't know where he's going, especially if he's the second running back. You have no idea where he's going. He might be in the backfield. He might be flanker. Might be whatever. And then you have Flowers, and you can do more with Flowers, and you still have Andrews on the field in that situation. And you can make a play over the middle if you need to, or go play action, or do any number of things that involve misdirection. The point being that I really think the Ravens need to create space before they're going to make valuable use of these multiple speed options they have in Hill, Duvernay, Mitchell, and Flowers.
Yep, I definitely like to see that as well. Was really disappointed to see Mitchell get 0 offensive snaps in this game. I think he's a component that we really could use at this point. And it sounds like they're hoping to get him involved maybe this week. I don't really think there's any excuses for what didn't happen this time. I'm still very disappointed, but I hope they're able to rectify it. 44 snaps for Edwards is way too many, particularly because I just don't think he's the best back in this backfield. I truly think Hill is best fit for this offense and needs more opportunity. I understand inside the ball, protection issues, but I think that's something that can be corrected and known about. I fear Edwards really needs this offensive line to be blocking better for him. I think at this stage of his career, his ability to just fall forward and get yards after contact is not quite where it was. And I still think he's scary once he gets to stride 6 or 7, but he hasn't been able to get there because of the way the blocks have been laid. And Hill, on the other hand, he has that shiftiness. He's been able to make something out of nothing. Sometimes he's able to make one cut and make something out of a play that wasn't blocked well. And I'm sure Mitchell could probably do the same. So we'll see a little bit less of Edwards and more of Hill and Mitchell.
It's a good point. I mean, obviously when they don't have Ricard in for the percentage of snaps they used to, and they're not the kind of point of attack offense they were last year, all numbers are going to be down. And the Ravens, Yakko in particular, the yards after contact has really suffered with the Monken offense. But right now, in this game, they're at 2.3 Yakko per ball, and that would rank, there you go. It would rank 49th among 60 running backs that have 23 plus carries this year. So I picked 23 because it's 20% of the maximum number of carries anybody's got right now. So it's a reasonable number, as reasonable number as any. I didn't hand pick it to get it to be a certain result here, but 49th of 60 obviously is not the percentile rank you want for Gus Edwards and the rest of the Ravens. That's the entire Ravens group. Okay. In terms of Yakko. The big difference between having the point of attack offense that they used to have with Roman and what they have now with Monken is that having Ricard lead and having, pulls and the misdirection and all the things that are basically the goal of all that is to make second level the first point of contact as opposed to first. So you burst that back into the second level, and then they have a chance to break tackles and make a longer play. Now, when Edwards gets there, he's facing a smaller man, generally speaking. Whether it's a linebacker or a safety or even a corner, is generally going to be a man who's no bigger than him. At this, and that's big opportunity for Yakko, and that's why Edwards has, for years maintained such a high rushing average, is because he's been able to get more second level first contact opportunities. He's a slippery guy. He does some other things that, in terms of elusiveness, that are probably a little bit underrated, but it's mostly the power. It's mostly the lean forward in terms of what he gives you after that first contact, his ability to work through it effectively, leave a leg, in the old Jim Brown way of talking about it. But he's a guy who, if you didn't expect that the offensive change alone was going to significantly drop his yards per carry, you're living in fantasy land. And honestly, I think he's pretty much exactly where you'd expect. He's in the mid fours right now in terms of yards per carry. And maybe I should look at that before I say, but it's a reasonable kind of a number for him to be at. Assuming I'm correct about that, which is always a risk here. So let's look at this. So Gus Edwards has averaged only 3.9 yards per carry. Okay, well, that's not reasonable. That's too low. This 2.6 obviously dragged him down significantly from this game. But he was due to have a big reduction in yards per carry. It was not reasonable to expect him to be at the same level. And the offense was really built for him as much as it was built for Lamar these last few years.
It's a really good insight about kind of the difference there with the point of attack offense and Edwards. I definitely felt like I'm still such a shame that we didn't get to see more JK. I was really excited to see how he would fit with this offense. I think he was obviously the natural fit. And now they have to do this committee approach, which just won't be as effective.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, they got to look ahead to 2024 at this point, and Hill will still be around. It looks like he'll still be, he's a good weapon in this offense so far, it looks like. But I think they really owe it to themselves to really see what they have with Mitchell. They need to figure out what they have for 2024, and they probably need to decide whether or not it's worth bringing back Edwards for another year, whether it's worth trying to re-sign Dobbins, maybe on a 1-year deal. It'll be a prove-it deal. It won't be a lot of money for Dobbins. Right. If it is a lot of money, thanks, JK. But we wish you the best. Right. But it won't be a lot of money for Dobbins, I don't believe. So it's really a case of do they really want a power back next year to fit aside with these guys? I think it makes sense to have one. You want to get, sometimes you just want to play heavy and the other team wants to play 8 in the box, and you got to be able to do a little bit of that. So it's nice to have the option, and hopefully they can find a play. Those guys are usually not that hard to find, honestly.
No, they're not. I was going to say you could probably find one for cheaper than what Edwards is costing you. As much as I love him, just recognizing the constraints going forward. Yep.
Now, there's some interesting things going on in that running back group, because Gordon is still on the practice squad, but he's out of activations. But they did cut Drake this week to make room for Adams on the practice squad. This the safety pickup we talked about earlier. What is the point? of keeping Melvin Gordon around on the practice squad when he's used up all his activations. There's no protection from any other team getting him. And maybe the running backs in the league get degraded enough to a point where somebody else does take him away from the Ravens.
Sure. I don't know. I'm not that high on Melvin Gordon. I think that there are other players that can be picked up that would be equally as effective. I mean, we see Fournette's still unspoken for, right? Like, he's out there. I don't know why they have Gordon still around the practice squad. He was an interesting choice from the get-go, I think, and continues to be interesting going forward.
Yeah, it really is. One fumble can change the course of history in a lot of ways. And Drake's fumble, we don't know what's going on in practice. We don't know what we're seeing. We don't really know if Drake might be a little bit out of shape or have some other work ethic issue or whatever's going on. We really don't know. But for whatever, there may be some reason from practice that they like Gordon over Drake, but it certainly seems like that one fumble really got Drake back in the doghouse and Gordon was ahead of him. And it's kind of one of the funniest things ever, that ironic anyway, that Gordon is chosen over Drake because Drake is a bigger fumbling issue. And anyway, Gordon's pass blocking with PFF, the ski slope of his career in terms of his pass blocking ratings, I've mentioned several times on this show, but he's not there for that. Let's put it that way.
Yep.
All right. Maybe we move on a little bit. We talk about who we didn't see in the offense besides Mitchell. And obviously Mitchell is a big one, but Duvernay, Likely, and Kolar had a combined 0 targets. They didn't play 0 snaps, and I'll tell you how many snaps they had in total here in a minute. But what were your feelings about
that? Sort of indifferent. They didn't have any targets in this game. I guess the one that was most striking was Duvernay, honestly. We were talking about on the show, we wouldn't be surprised if we see more of him now that Keaton Mitchell's available. He could also be a returner, right? So maybe they feel a little bit more comfortable using him in more offensive snaps and more offensive positions. And honestly, as we continue to see the struggles of Bateman and OBJ, it wouldn't surprise me if they turn over to Duvernay. Different kind of receiver, but a guy who can had some success earlier in the season last year and some growth. So hasn't had the best opportunities. I think he's only been targeted 7 times this year and only 2 catches out of that. And if you remember, like, a lot of them were pretty contested, so it's not the worst that he hasn't had the catches. They weren't the most opportune targets, but I'm definitely want to see a little bit more of him. Likely, he's in a tough spot. I feel like he almost regressed this year from where he was end of last year, and I want to see him able to contribute more as a blocker to kind of warrant being out there, because the way he was playing recently, I feel like that's not it's not helping over some of the wide receivers we have.
You know, that's a really good point about Likely as a blocker here, because the 3 of them together had 38 snaps. So Likely had 17, 24% of the snaps, Duvernay 15, Kolar 6. Kolar, I don't even know if he got out in the pattern. I think he was used twice as a pass blocker, and he might have been used 4 times as a run blocker for all I know, because it was in that point in the game that he was in. So they're trying to get him for that. Likely hasn't had a target in 3 weeks. He had 1 target each in the first 3 games. I mean, you compare his targets to Hill or any number of other players. I mean, I think that everybody, and if you go back to my preseason show, Likely predicted lower targets for him, just because, hey, this offense is much more target rich. There'll be more passes, but there'll also be more mouths to feed. And so, just Likely he's not going to be a guy who ends up with as many targets, but a drop to 3 targets in 6 games. He's on pace for 8.5 targets for the year. That is not going to get it done. And it's not because his individual production on those targets has been bad. He's gotten about 8 yards per target, I believe, on his 4 targets. So that's not the problem. The problem is that he's he did have a big drop. He did have a big drop.
Yeah, he had a huge drop.
Yeah, and that was his only ball he hasn't caught this year. But okay. So some trust points there he's certainly lost. But to have no targets for 3 weeks, that is a really tough run here for him.
Interested to see if we scheme him in the the scripted plays.
Yeah.
Because I really liked Likely. He was my favorite tight end in the draft that year. And I think I'm optimistic about him going forward, but I want to see, he has to fit this offense a little bit better. And And I think he has the opportunity to do it. Just he has to get there. So we'll see. Because actually, I would say he's another interesting option if we continue to see struggles out of OBJ and Bateman. You go to more 12 personnel.
Go to 12, or even any of the kind of thing we saw maybe a little bit last year, getting him out there as an X on someplace. I hope they don't end up with that. Honestly, I don't think that serves a really good purpose. But all right. So anyway, sad to see that the ball's not getting spread around now. I do think we're back to the same problem is the Monken offense, the thing it has not delivered on so far. And I think, he's done some good things. He's tried to run out a game, and he did it successfully once against Cincinnati, getting a game run out effectively. They did a good job, honestly, in this game in having that 13-play field goal drive, getting the game, worked out at the end. That really hasn't been the problem. The problem has been it just has not delivered on the promised spacing. And if we're going to get a good passing game going, or even if you're going to get Lamar going as a runner to a greater degree, space is critical. I mean, offense, it's the first thing offense needs, and Monken seem to understand that, and yet they're not doing enough to try and generate it. And there's two forms of space that they're missing out on. One is trying to come up with ways, and this is where it really takes a wizard offensively, to create time and space opportunities for Lamar, because you got to come up with compound blocking schemes and whatnot with all the problems they have on the offensive line right now. And then the problem number two is you've got to find space in levels 2 and 3 by taking the safety's attention away, not letting the safety keep his eyes in the backfield the whole play, creating at least extended plays where there are opportunities over level 2 to make plays. And they just, I don't feel like that's happened. And when the ball doesn't go over level 2, it's got to be in, between level 1 and the linebacker with lots of opportunity to beat somebody with the kind of speed guys we have. And we just have not had those kind of plays develop so far this year. And Lamar's doing a lot of it himself with his legs, and he's not, he hasn't had the good intermediate opportunities except in the drop game. We had a lot of them, and they all got dropped.
Yeah.
Or a bunch of them got dropped.
I think what I noticed is I feel like the level 1 and maybe like intermediate 2 spacing has been excellent. I've really appreciated how many times I've seen all 22. Like, oh, look, everyone's like well spaced out. Like they're not on top of each other. I felt like you can see kind of the manipulation they're trying to do, the read progression, et cetera. But I do agree they haven't pushed the envelope downfield and kind of expand the defense out in that way and create space that way. And then also the combination blocks. That's the 400 class. We're not there yet with this offense.
Yeah, it is a lot to figure out. And in some ways you just have to hope that Stanley in particular gets a little healthier and they figure out the left guard situation. Because right now, Simpson is hanging on by a thread in terms of what's going on there. I was optimistic, but the penalties have not worked out, and obviously he's had other problems with balance and whatnot that have made him more of a target, and that has been difficult.
Was anyone else licking their chops when he got down and thought, "Oh, Cleveland's going to get a chance," and then he came back right away? I was kind of like,
Cleveland did get a play, yeah,
one whole play. So yeah,
tough opponent, by the way, for interior offensive linemen. I mean, this is a tough opponent. Anyway, they had their problems. We'll get to that in the second part of the show. 11 set blocks, 11 chip blocks in this game. Now, this is going to happen because the tackles need help, and even Moses, who was back and looked pretty good in this game, still needs help. He's a much better run blocker than he is a pure pass blocker. Gives you a lot more in terms of mobility than anybody gives him credit for. But the 11 sets and 11 chips are 0.71 of your 5 eligible receivers per play used on average. It's a seventh of your eligible receivers you're giving away to try and help what is primarily your offensive tackles. There's some blitz pick up there in the middle as well, but most of our charting is the set and chip blockers are L or R. They're not M's. Meaning M's are anywhere between the tackles and L's or R are outside. So it's really giving away something that the patterns on those those chip blocks rather are limited in terms of what they could do. Andrews does that. He's in a way out of gas. He usually runs 5 yards, and there's just a very limited set of routes he can run from there.
Yep, that's one of the big issues too in the red zone. I feel like I don't know if you have it charted for how many of those chips and sets are in the red zone, but losing one more option, very painful. I saw that a couple times at least. So it makes it hard. When you're not able to trust your tackles to give the protection necessary in order to see these plays develop.
Mm-hmm. What was, I think, more disappointing to me about this is a game where the Titans had a preponderance of 4-man rush. Now, one of the things you notice this is definitely you notice if you chart this, is that we'll call out the play and I'll be at the line of scrimmage. Maureen actually writes it down, so I'm going, okay, they're at 3-1-1, a 4-0, a 4-man pass rush is shown. They bring it 4-0, and then the next thing she wants to know is sets and chip blockers. And I have to let it go forward a little bit, and I go all free releases, and it's almost always when you have a 4-man pass rush, it is typically all free releases, and there's not a chip on one side or the other. And this is a case where they're still chipping, even though they've got a 4-man pass rush coming up, and that's just not a good sign. You don't trust your tackles in that case. And as we mentioned, 23 out of the 31 plays they rushed 4 in this game, and they're still using 0.71 of their eligible receivers per play to help block. So it's not a high trust of their current offensive line that they're showing with that. And it really showed up. And they still gave up 48% pressure. It is a good interior line, and Simmons is a handful to deal with, and he's playing on the edge some too. So he's against Moses, and they really felt like they needed to give him help there some. But it's really something where they've got to find ways to either get a lot more time to throw by using those set and chip blockers that create some additional extended plays, or they need to find some other wizardry to roll Lamar to one side maybe and get him an opportunity to throw with a rolling pocket that has more protection, or even use more protection than they're using to create time that way. But there's got to be a better way. There has to be a better way than what they're getting currently out of their offensive line to make space for Lamar, make time for Lamar.
Yeah, I couldn't say it any better. It's the number one thing I think holding back the offense is the offensive line and their performance. So it'll have a big ripple effect as they're getting less help from the chip blocks and also just playing more effectively.
Offensive line play is down all over the league. Not offensive line play. I don't want to say that. Offense is down all over the league. Yeah. And I think some of it is the fact that teams have gotten better at playing zone defense, and they're more able to deal with giving up short gains in the passing game because they know every pass you take is a risk. You got the chance of pressure, you got the chance of turnovers that go with that, and also that go with pressure throws, whether it's fumbles or turnovers. But it's something that maybe my expectations need to be reduced as well. I remember watching Matt Burke play offensive line when he first got to the Ravens, just how much he broke the system in terms of the percentage of his blocks that he was making. And maybe it's just something where with the reduction in offense in the league in general, that the scoring for tackles needs to be a little bit easier than it is right now, or maybe even for guards as well, because guards aren't scoring well either.
Another hypothesis I heard is the more 7-on-7 going on at the lower levels, it's not encouraging good line play. It's easier to extract dynamic edge rushers out of 7-on-7 play players than offensive linemen, right?
So you're talking about like junior leagues or something not playing with line play because they want to reduce injuries or something?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. That's really interesting.
Yeah, that's one of the theories I heard. So
yeah, because they certainly are playing with it in high school and college. They're still playing with normal offensive lines and whatnot, or if you call what they do in the Big 12 normal offensive line players. But they are playing with normal offensive lines. And, interesting. That's an interesting idea. Unbalanced line, they used one time in this game. They used it 19 times in weeks 2 and 3. A lot of that was to cover up with injuries happening. And they just tucked Moses one time on the left side in this game and a 5 unbalanced left. Really something I thought we'd see a lot more of, but that was also based on the fact that I thought Daniel Fa'alele was going to be in there and they were going to have to tuck him a lot. So that hasn't really materialized, but it's something that we would. I don't think it's off the table. I think Monken was effective with it in weeks 2 and 3, so there's a good chance the Ravens end up going back to it at some point.
Yep. I think, we're through the first third of the year, and I think this is time for them to kind of self-scout, reflect, and try another, iteration, so to speak, of this offense. I think this is a good, we have enough of a sample size now to kind of go forward with a, I don't know, for lack of a better word, refreshed approach. I know they probably do that every week, but I feel like we have enough sample size now to really look back at what's worked and what hasn't.
Yeah, let me ask you this, because I think this is something you can't get married to any one thing, in my opinion. But let's just talk on offense exclusively. The Ravens are 5th in the entire league in third down percentage. To me, that's obviously not the place where they're going to be easily able to squeeze out more efficiency than what they've got. Maybe they need to be better to stay at the same level. But I'd be perfectly happy if they finish with a 46%, 45 to 46% third down percentage.
Yeah, I mean,
okay. I want to go through these because the question is, where are they going to pick up the efficiency? Is the idea that they've gotten. So on fourth down, I don't know how many times they've got, but they might have only gone for it four times and they're at 25%. I don't think they've gone for it 8 times. So I think it's primarily just a small sample size, but they are next to last in the entire league in that. That has been an area of previous strength and something, you want that to be in the bag of tricks, but it's also a low total number of plays you're potentially impacting. And I don't think that's also where they need to extract additional value. They need to get better at there, but it's not going to be where they make a substantial jump.
I think the biggest one is getting back on schedule when first down fails. That's the number one. I mean, that's probably everybody, right? It's not particularly unique, but I do think that's probably the place where they can extract the most value. I don't know how well that's tracking the stats, but that's what I feel like would help them the most. A lot of times what happens is I was looking at the by drive. You have an incompletion on first down. You run for 1 yard on second. Like that happened like I think 3 times in this game. That kind of just stifled. So incompletion, ineffective rush, long third down. So I think having a more successful first down and that kind of like it becomes tricky. Because if you're trying to stay balanced, right? If you pass on first down and it fails, then you got to pass again, right? Like if you're trying to really get back on schedule, because I don't know how realistic it is to expect a 6 or 7 yard run. I mean, it happens. Don't get me wrong, but particularly with this offensive line state, I don't know. It's less likely than it has been in the past. So finding a way to get better at second down would be critical.
Yeah, it does put you in a tough position on first down. And the Ravens of the past few years of the Roman era, because they ran on a high percentage of first downs, either by a lot of them by scramble as well as by normal designed runs. Always had Lamar as a threat, on those plays, and the current Ravens do too. But they don't run as often here anymore. And when they do run, they have, because the yards per carry are down, they're not staying on schedule as often as they used to be. So when you ask them to say, well, then I went run past balance on first down, then you have to take risk on first down, because if you pass the ball and it's incomplete, then you got a problem. Lamar's had a high completion percentage this year, but a lot of the other little short dinky crap they've been doing to the outside has not been particularly good, in terms of creating a lot of yards on those plays. So hard to stay on schedule when you don't have the one real weapon, a super high percentage player or a receiver who is just deadly on a whip route or something like that just can easily get you 5, 6, 7, 8 yards all the time. I'm personally, particularly when the Ravens are running out of game, I'm always, first thing I say is 9's better than 10 as soon as they have a 9-yard gain on first down. So I'm always excited to see anything, 6 or higher usually.
Yep. No, for sure. No, that's smart football. I tell you, like that Roquan play was so astute to not tackle him. Like that's kind of one of those similar to just eking out a little bit of value there. Yeah.
So we had this question come up yesterday. I was talking to James Ogden about it on the defense show, but I just said, when you can see Roquan having on-field awareness that basically that's not the first level awareness that I want. The first level awareness I want is wide receiver knowing you're not supposed to go in the end zone, kneel down at the 1 yard line, kneel down at the 2 yard line, do whatever you have to do to not score a touchdown, even though it's every instinct in your body tells you score a touchdown. Look at the damn scoreboard. Know what the situation is going in. And fortunately, the Ravens haven't had a situation like that where they scored a touchdown they shouldn't have, going back to the Juszczyk touchdown on Christmas night 2016 that shall not be forgotten. But they've had a number or twice where the Bears did it to them, and then Pickens did it to them, where basically the receivers gave the Ravens another chance in the ball game because of it. And I just, if all I want for that is a wide receiver is to understand that level, I want the same thing out of defensive players. Know when it's time to push a guy into the end zone. But in this case, this is 2 levels up from that, what Roquan did. I mean, what Roquan did is he said, okay, there's 2:12 left of the game. Let me let him get up. I'll bleed off another 5 seconds off the clock, and maybe they won't be able to have time to get this next play off because they have to get back to the line of scrimmage after that, and I might even be able to lay on them for half a second and whatnot. All of those things, he had to put all that together. If there's a player who can put that together on the field, how the hell can we not demand that of other players? Athletes have accountability between each other. Why do we not demand that kind of in-game awareness of other players?
That's a great question. I mean, it might have been one of the most heads up plays I've seen since covering the Ravens. Honestly, it was. I didn't think of it. I'll tell you that much. I was watching him. I was like, what is he? Oh, wait a second.
Here's the great thing. Now, Kurt Warner had a really bad game as an announcer here. I mean, just all pro offense, a bunch of crap. But this play, he said, oh, I don't know what he's thinking here. Well, Warner, of anybody who has to manage the clock as a quarterback, had to at some point, obviously in the distant past. There's been a few happy hour drinks since then, obviously, since that happened. But he should have known exactly what was going on with the clock there. In fact, one of the things to do in that situation, if you're the tight end, is just go ahead and kick Roquan in the shin and get the down by contact taken care of, and then get up. Right. But he didn't try and do that. It would have been asking a lot, perhaps, in that case.
Yeah, I would probably was just confused. What's going on here?
Yeah. But yeah, that was kind of funny there. It would have been probably would have been a level 2 for Okonkwo to understand. Okay, I need to kick him in the shin and get down and get this play taken care of. Because Roquan is all up in his legs too. I was thinking, was there contact there? I'm trying to watch it.
It was incredibly impressive dance to not touch him, to be in position to tackle him so effectively, but also not touch him. Masterclass.
Yeah, very, very well done. But unbelievable awareness on field, and they'll talk about that in the film room. And basically, I hope that what goes with that, and they've already watched the film, so what went with that is, look, all you wide receivers, all you ball carriers out there, you understand you have obligations to understand what the game situation is as well. Get it done. Understand where we are in the ball game. They always tell baseball players, you got to know that. You don't get thrown out at third base for the last out, right? Mm-hmm. You have to have all sorts of situational awareness. This is it's not a lot to expect of a football player either. And Roquan proved it by doing something that was just miles ahead of what I want out of every player. Yep. All right, we'll come back. We'll talk about the second part, offensive line play and some other things in the second half, including our MVPs from this game. Alec, tell folks where they can find you writing online.
Sure. You can find us at One Winning Pod. Want to give a shout out to our YouTube channel. We've started to introduce a little bit more video, actual video rather than just the audio with a static picture to it. And had a really great conversation with Glover Quinn, all-pro safety of the Lions, previewing that game. So definitely recommend checking it out. He had some really interesting insights, and we even had an off-the-cuff questionnaire asking about, what it was like playing Joe Flacco and some other quarterbacks in the league. And he had some really interesting kind of things to say about, those experiences as well. So definitely recommend giving it a listen. It was a really fun time.
All right, outstanding. Sounds like a great guest. Honestly, I always love getting ex players and the real football they can give you is just really interesting. So give that a shot. Other folks out there, if you'd like to be on a film study short, go ahead and hit me up with a DM on Twitter. They're always open, and I've gotten a good stream of these coming in the last few days. Appreciate it, and always seeing interesting things on Twitter. I'd like to go up if you have any kind of a thought experiment you want to talk about. That's always fun. I don't even mind if you're trading A for B or whatever. You want to talk about the trade deadline? I want to talk about strategies there. Anything you'd like to, I'm eager to talk to you about. Hit me up with a DM and I'll get right back to you. We'll see if there's a show there. Alec, thanks again for coming on.
Thanks, Ken.
And we'll talk to you next time on Film Study.